Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari. Gopidana Ballabha Girivanadari. Yashodanandana Vrajadana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Banatari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari. Gopidana Ballabha Girivanadari. Yashodanandana Vrajadana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Banatari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari. Gopidana Ballabha Girivanadari. Yashodanandana Vrajadana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Banatari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, thank you very much for being here. I was asked, surprisingly, during the morning program short after Tulsi Puja, to give a half an hour address. I shortly prepared a short class. Actually, it's not going to be a very extensive philosophical class, but I wanted to do some reading, especially start with some reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita, and then also the 8th chapter of the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Lord Narasimha actually appears. So I start with some reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Sorry, Hare Krishna. So, as we all know, Lord Nrsimhadev was brought to us by Srila Prabhupada. And the first time that Lord Nrsimhadev was systematically worshipped in our International Society for Krishna Consciousness was at the time that Srila Prabhupada was very sick in 1968. He had suffered another severe heart attacks, another couple of severe heart attacks, and even half side of his body was paralyzed. At that time, he was in San Francisco. And at that time already, Srila Prabhupada carried pictures of Lord Narasimha with him. So the image of Lord Narasimha was already quite well known to the devotees at that time. But they didn't know very much how to worship him. Neither did they know the Narasimha prayers, how to sing Namaste Narasimhaya, these prayers. So at the time that Prabhupada was very sick, he asked the devotees to please pray for his health to Lord Narasimha. The prayer that Prabhupada suggested was, "My dear Lord Narasimha, if you so desire, please protect the health of our spiritual master so that the International Society for Krishna Consciousness can go on." And at that time also, Srila Prabhupada for the first time instructed this prayer, Namaste Narasimhaya Pralada Lada Rayine Hiranyakashipu Bhakshaya Silatankana Kalaye Itoni Shingo Paratoni Shingo Yato Yato Yamitatoni Shingo Bahia Nishingo Ridaye Nishingo Narasimha Mading Sharanam Prapadye. And then this Tavakara Kamala. So this first part is from the Narasimha Purana, and Prabhupada taught this prayer to his disciple Caturdasi for the first time, and he made her write that prayer down. And then Jadurani circulated those prayers to all the ISKCON temples at that time. That was San Francisco, Montreal, and New York. And in this way, these Nishinga prayers became known in the movement, and Lord Nrsimhadev was regularly worshipped by these prayers then from that time on. Also before Srila Prabhupada left the planet, when he was very sick towards the end of his life, all the temples were instructed to pray to Lord Narasimhadev for Srila Prabhupada's health. And that the result, of course, was that Krishna took Srila Prabhupada back to his personal abode. So that was also a type of protection of Lord Narasimhadev. So this is how Lord Nrsimhadev kind of made his made his entrance into the Hare Krishna movement, our ISKCON. But the worship of Lord Nrsimhadev is much, much older. We now found a lion man some distance from here. He is about 30,000 years old. Lion man, you know, a sculpture made from mammoth tooth. And we are in communication with Simhachalam. Maybe we want to have a festival comparing that little sculpture with Lord Narasimhadev on the altar. That's another thing. It is also very well known that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whom you see here, you see him on the altar, had very intimate dealings with Lord Nrsimhadev. And here I wanted to read some excerpts from Chaitanya Charitamrita. So this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 17, verse 90. One day the Lord ordered Srivas Thakur to read the Brihat Sahasranam, the 1,000 names of Lord Vishnu, for he wanted to hear them at that time. As he read the 1,000 names of the Lord, in due course the holy name of Lord Narasimha appeared. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the holy name of Lord Nrsimha, he became fully absorbed in thought. Text 92. In the mood of Lord Nrsimhadev, Lord Chaitanya ran through the city streets, club in hand, ready to kill all the atheists. Seeing him appearing very fierce in the ecstasy of Lord Nrsimha, people ran from the street and fled here and there, afraid of his anger. Seeing the people so afraid, the Lord came to his external senses and thus returned to the house of Srivas Thakur and threw away the club. The Lord became morose and said to Srivas Thakur, "When I adopted the mood of Lord Nrsingadev, people were greatly afraid. Therefore I stopped, since causing fear among people is an offense." Srivas Thakur replied, "Anyone who takes your holy name vanquishes 10 million of his offenses immediately." There was no offense in your appearing as Nrsingadev. Rather, any man who saw you in that mood was immediately liberated from the bondage of material existence. After saying this, Srivas Thakur worshipped the Lord, who was then greatly satisfied and returned to his own home. So here we can see Lord Nrsingadev appearing in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Chaitanya manifesting the mood of Lord Narasimha. And later also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu traveled to all the places all over India, and he visited one particular place that was Jiyara Narasimha Kshetra in southern India. And there Lord Chaitanya very opulently worshipped that Lord Nrsingadev. Actually, this place, Simhachalam, that we now call Simhachalam, was previously called Jiyara Narasimha Kshetra. So I want to read to you this way how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu worshipped Lord Narasimhadev in Jiyara Nrsingadev Kshetra. That's Madhya Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 8, verse 3 and following verses. According to his previous program, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went forward on his tour, and after some days arrived at the place of pilgrimage known as Jiyara Nrsinga. Upon seeing the deity of Lord Nrsinga in the temple, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offered his respectful obeisances by falling flat. Then, in ecstatic love, he performed various dances, chanted, and offered prayers. Shri Nrsinga, Jai Nrsinga, Jaya Jaya Nrsinga, Prala Desha, Jaya Padma, Mukha Padma Bringa. All glories to Nrsingadev, all glories to Nrsingadev, who is the Lord of Prahlad Maharaj, and like a honeybee is always engaged in beholding the lotus-like face of the goddess of fortune. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The goddess of fortune is always embraced by Lord Nrsingadeva. This is mentioned in the commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam written by the great commentator Srila Sridhar Swami. The following verse was composed by Sridhar Swami in his commentary on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 1087.1. Vagisha yasya vadane lakshmiryasya chavakshashi yasyaste hridaye samvit tang nishingam ahang bhaje. Lord Nrsingadeva is always assisted by Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and he is always embracing the goddess of fortune to his chest. The Lord is always complete in knowledge within himself. Let us offer obeisances unto Nrsingadeva. Similarly, in his commentary on the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.1, Sridhar Swami describes Lord Nrsingadeva in this way. Pralada ridaya ladang bhakta vidya vidaranang sharat induruching vande parindra vadanam harim. Let me offer my obeisances unto Lord Nrsingadeva, who is always enlightening Prahlad Maharaj within his heart, and who always kills the nations that attacks the devotees. His mercy is distributed like moonshine, and his face is like that of a lion. Let me offer my obeisances unto him again and again. Next verse. Ukropi anukraeva yang svapaktanam nikeshari keshari vasvapotanam anyesham ukravikramaha. Although very ferocious, the lioness is very kind to her cubs. Similarly, although very ferocious to non-devotees like Hiranyakashipu, Lord Nrsingadeva is very, very soft and kind to devotees like Prahlad Maharaj. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This verse was composed by Sridhar Swami in his commentary on the seventh canto of Srimad Bhagavatam 791. Next verse. In this way, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recited different verses from the Shastra. The priest of Lord Nrsingadeva then brought garlands and the remnants of the Lord's food and offered them to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As usual, a Brahmana offered Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu an invitation. The Lord passed the night in the temple and then commenced his tour again. So this is one excerpt from Chaitanya Charitamrita, where we can see that Lord Chaitanya also intensely worshipped Lord Narasimha. Also, he regularly visited the Nishinga temple in Jagannath Puri, where he stayed during the final 18 years of his life, and there also was immersed in the mood of worshipping Lord Nrsingadev. So now, because we'll have the learned explanations of our gurus and acharyas coming up, I only wanted to read the verses from the 8th chapter of 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, describing how actually Lord Nrsingadev killed Hiranyakashipu. So that part is actually told by Narada Muni to Yudhisthira. I read the Bhagavatam verse. Si Narada uvacha ata daitya sutta sarve shrutvatat anuvanitam jagrihur niravatyadvan naiva guru anushikshitam. Narada Muni continued. All the sons of the demons appreciated the transcendental instructions of Prahlad Maharaj and took them very seriously. They rejected the materialistic instructions given by their teachers, Sanda and Amarka. When Sanda and Amarka, the sons of Sukracharya, observed that all the students, the sons of the demons, were becoming advanced in Krishna consciousness because of the association of Prahlad Maharaj, they were afraid. They approached the king of the demons and described the situation as it was. When Hiranyakashipu understood the entire situation, he was extremely angry, so much so that his body trembled. Thus he finally decided to kill his son Prahlad. Hiranyakashipu was by nature very cruel, and feeling insulted, he began hissing like a snake trampled upon by someone's foot. His son Prahlad was peaceful, mild, and gentle. His senses were under control, and he stood before Hiranyakashipu with folded hands. According to Prahlada's age and behavior, he was not to be chastised, yet with staring, crooked eyes, Hiranyakashipu rebuked him with the following harsh words. Hiranyakashipu said, O most impudent, most unintelligent disruptor of the family, O lowest of mankind, you have violated my power to rule you, and therefore you are an obstinate fool. Today I shall send you to the place of Yamaraja. My son Prahlad, you rascal, you know that when I am angry, all the planets of the three worlds tremble, along with their chief rulers. By whose power has a rascal like you become so impudent that you appear fearless and overstep my power to rule you? Prahlad Maharaj said, My dear king, the source of my strength, of which you are asking, is also the source of yours. Indeed, the original source of all kinds of strength is one. He is not only your strength or mine, but the only strength for everyone. Without him, no one can get any strength, whether moving or not moving, superior or inferior, everyone, including Lord Brahma, is controlled by the strength of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the supreme controller and time factor, is the power of the senses, the power of the mind, the power of the body, and the vital force of the senses. His influence is unlimited. He is the best of all living entities, the controller of the three modes of material nature. By his own power, he creates this cosmic manifestation, maintains it, and annihilates it also. Prahlad Maharaj continued, "My dear father, please give up your demonic mentality. Do not discriminate in your heart between enemies and friends. Make your mind equipoised toward everyone. Except for the uncontrolled and misguided mind, there is no enemy within this world. When one sees everyone on the platform of equality, then one comes to the position of worshipping the Lord perfectly. In former times there were many fools like you who did not conquer the 6 enemies that steal away the wealth of the body. These fools were very proud, thinking, I have conquered all enemies in all the 10 directions. But if a person is victorious over the 6 enemies and is equipoised toward all living entities, for him there are no enemies. Enemies are merely imagined by one in ignorance." Hiranyakashipu replied, "You rascal, you are trying to minimize my value as if you were better than me at controlling the senses. This is over-intelligent. I can therefore understand that you desire to die at my hands, for this kind of nonsensical talk is indulged in by those about to die. O most unfortunate Prahlad, you have always described a supreme being other than me, a supreme being who is above everything, who is the controller of everyone, and who is all-pervading. But where is he? If he is everywhere, then why is he not present before me in this pillar? Because you are speaking so much nonsense, I shall now sever your head from your body. Now let me see your most worshipable God come to protect you. I want to see it." Being obsessed with anger, Hiranyakashipu, who was very great in bodily strength, thus chastised his exalted devotee son Prahlad with harsh words. Cursing him again and again, Hiranyakashipu took up his sword, got up from his royal throne, and with great anger struck his fist against the column. Then from within the pillar came a fearful sound, which appeared to crack the covering of the universe. O my dear Yudhisthira, this sound reached even the abodes of the demigods like Lord Brahma, and when the demigods heard it, they thought, "Oh, now our planets are being destroyed." While showing his extraordinary prowess, Hiranyakashipu, who desired to kill his own son, heard that wonderful tumultuous sound which had never before been heard. Upon hearing the sound, the other leaders of the demons were afraid. None of them could find the origin of that sound in the assembly. To prove that the statement of his servant Prahlad Maharaj was substantial, in other words, to prove that the Supreme Lord is present everywhere, even within the pillar of an assembly hall, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari exhibited a wonderful form never before seen. The form was neither that of a man nor that of a lion. Thus the Lord appeared in his wonderful form in the assembly hall. While Hiranyakashipu looked all around to find the source of the sound, that wonderful form of the Lord, which could not be ascertained to be either man or a lion, emerged from the pillar. In amazement, Hiranyakashipu wondered, what is this creature that is half man and half lion? Hiranyakashipu studied the form of the Lord, trying to decide who the form of Nishinga standing before him was. The Lord's form was so extremely fearsome because of his angry eyes which resembled molten gold. His shining mane, which expanded the dimensions of his fearful face, his deadly teeth, and his razor-sharp tongue, which moved about like a dueling sword. His ears were erect and motionless, and his nostrils and gaping mouth appeared like caves of a mountain. His jaws parted fearfully, and his entire body touched the sky. His neck was very short and thick, his chest broad, his waist thin, and the hairs on his body as white as the rays of the moon. His arms, which resembled flanks of soldiers, spread in all directions as he killed the demons, rogues, and atheists with his conchal disc, club, lotus, and other natural weapons. Hiranyakashipu murmured to himself, Lord Vishnu, who possesses great mystic power, has made this plan to kill me. But what is the use of such an attempt? Who can fight with me? Thinking like this and taking up his club, Hiranyakashipu attacked the Lord like an elephant. Just as a small insect falls forcefully into a fire and the insignificant creature becomes invisible, when Hiranyakashipu attacked the Lord, who was full of effulgence, Hiranyakashipu became invisible. This is not at all astonishing, for the Lord is always situated in pure goodness. Formerly, during creation, he entered the dark universe and illuminated it by his spiritual effulgence. Thereafter, the great demon Hiranyakashipu, who was extremely angry, swiftly attacked Nishingadeva with his club and began to beat him. Lord Nishingadeva, however, captured the great demon along with his club, just as Garuda might capture a great snake. O Yudhisthira, O great son of Bharata, when Lord Nishingadeva gave Hiranyakashipu a chance to slip from his hand, just as Garuda sometimes plays with a snake and lets it slip from his mouth, the demigods who had lost their abodes and were hiding behind the clouds for fear of the demon did not consider that incident very good. Indeed, they were perturbed. When Hiranyakashipu was freed from the hands of Nishingadeva, he falsely thought that the Lord was afraid of his prowess. Therefore, after taking a little rest from the fight, he took up his sword and shield and again attacked the Lord with great force. Making a loud, shrill sound of laughter, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, who is extremely strong and powerful, captured Hiranyakashipu, who was protecting himself with his sword and shield, leaving no gaps open. With the speed of a hawk, Hiranyakashipu moved sometimes in the sky and sometimes on the earth, his eyes closed because of fear of Narasimhadeva's laughter. As a snake captures a mouse or Garuda captures a very venomous snake, Lord Nishingadeva captured Hiranyakashipu, who could not be pierced even by the thunderbolt of King Indra. As Hiranyakashipu moved his limbs here, there, and all around, very much afflicted at being captured, Lord Nishingadeva placed the demon on his lap, supporting him with his thighs, and in the doorway of the assembly hall, the Lord very easily tore the demon to pieces with the nails of his hands. Lord Nishingadeva's mouth and mane were sprinkled with drops of blood, and his fierce eyes, full of anger, were impossible to look at. Licking the edge of his mouth with his tongue, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Nishingadeva, decorated with a garland of intestines, taking from Hiranyakashipu's abdomen, resembled a lion that has just killed an elephant. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who had many, many arms, first uprooted Hiranyakashipu's heart, and then threw him aside and turned toward the demon soldiers. These soldiers had come in thousands to fight with him with raised weapons and were very faithful followers of Hiranyakashipu, but Lord Nishingadeva killed all of them merely with the ends of his nails. The hair on Nishingadeva's head shook the clouds and scattered them here and there. His glaring eyes stole the effulgence of the luminaries in the sky. and his breathing agitated the seas and oceans. Because of his roaring, all the elephants in the world began to cry in fear. So we stop here. Okay, now the acharyas will speak their words. Okay.
More acharyas coming.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Vajanath Prabhu.
Haribo.
Vajanath Prabhu ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
So now we can all turn towards the screen. And we have already Krishna Kshetra Maharaj and Sacinandana Maharaj joined us on Zoom. While we are setting up the final sharpness of the picture and connecting everything, just one short announcement. If you want to volunteer to do some service.
And his nostrils and gaping mouth appeared like caves of a mountain. His jaws parted fearfully, and his entire body touched the sky. His neck was very short and thick, his chest broad, his waist thin, and the hairs on his body as white as the rays of the moon. His arms, which resembled flanks of soldiers, spread in all directions as he killed the demons, rogues and atheists with his conchal disc, club, lotus, and other natural weapons. Hiranyakashipu murmured to himself, Lord Vishnu, who possesses great mystic power, has made this plan to kill me. But what is the use of such an attempt? Who can fight with me? Thinking like this and taking up his club, Hiranyakashipu attacked the Lord like an elephant. Just as a small insect falls forcefully into a fire and the insignificant creature becomes invisible, when Hiranyakashipu attacked the Lord, who was full of effulgence, Hiranyakashipu became invisible. This is not at all astonishing, for the Lord is always situated in pure goodness. Formerly, during creation, he entered the dark universe and illuminated it by his spiritual effulgence. Thereafter, the great demon Hiranyakashipu, who was extremely angry, swiftly attacked Nishingadeva with his club and began to beat him. Lord Nishingadeva, however, captured the great demon along with his club, just as Garuda might capture a great snake. O Yudhisthira, O great son of Bharata, when Lord Nishingadeva gave Hiranyakashipu a chance to slip from his hand, just as Garuda sometimes plays with a snake and lets it slip from his mouth, the demigods who had lost their abodes and were hiding behind the clouds for fear of the demon did not consider that incident very good. Indeed, they were perturbed. When Hiranyakashipu was freed from the hands of Nishingadeva, he falsely thought that the Lord was afraid of his prowess. Therefore, after taking a little rest from the fight, he took up his sword and shield and again attacked the Lord with great force. Making a loud, shrill sound of laughter, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, who is extremely strong and powerful, captured Hiranyakashipu, who was protecting himself with his sword and shield, leaving no gaps open. With the speed of a hawk, Hiranyakashipu moved sometimes in the sky and sometimes on the earth, his eyes closed because of fear of Narasimhadeva's laughter. As a snake captures a mouse, or Garuda captures a very venomous snake, Lord Nishingadeva captured Hiranyakashipu, who could not be pierced even by the thunderbolt of King Indra. As Hiranyakashipu moved his limbs here, there, and all around, very much afflicted at being captured, Lord Nishingadeva placed the demon on his lap, supporting him with his thighs, and in the doorway of the assembly hall, the Lord very easily tore the demon to pieces with the nails of his hands. Lord Nishingadeva's mouth and mane were sprinkled with drops of blood, and his fierce eyes, full of anger, were impossible to look at. Licking the edge of his mouth with his tongue, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Nishingadeva, decorated with a garland of intestines, taking from Hiranyakashipu's abdomen, resembled a lion that has just killed an elephant. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who had many, many arms, first uprooted Hiranyakashipu's heart and then threw him aside and turned toward the demon soldiers. These soldiers had come in thousands to fight with him with raised weapons and were very faithful followers of Hiranyakashipu, but Lord Nishingadeva killed all of them merely with the ends of his nails. The hair on Nishingadeva's head shook the clouds and scattered them here and there. His glaring eyes stole the effulgence of the luminaries in the sky, and his breathing agitated the seas and oceans. Because of his roaring, all the elephants in the world began to cry in fear. So we stop here. Okay, now the acharyas will speak their words.
More acharyas, yes.
Okay.
More acharyas coming.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Vajanath Prabhu.
Haribo.
Vajanath Prabhu ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
So now we can all turn towards the screen, and we have already Krishna Kshetra Maharaj and Sacinandana Maharaj joined us on Zoom. While we are setting up the final sharpness of the picture and connecting everything, just one short announcement. If you want to volunteer to do some service, you can talk to Bhakta Bashar. He's visible. Right now it's not in the temple room, but he's always roaming around, managing the services. He will need 6 people for the evening prasadam service. So 3 ladies, 3 gentlemen we would need. And if you're inspired to do any other seva, he also has always plenty on demand. So just make sure to talk to him and you will be able to do some service for the Lord. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna Maharaj, welcome to Simhachalam Dham. You can hear us?
Hare Krishna, yes, I can hear you.
So we can't hear you yet, so let's try again. So the technicians are working on making sure we can hear you as well.
Testing, testing, testing.
Yes, yeah, now we can hear you. Haribol! Krishna Kshetra Maharaj ki jai. So we're very glad to have Maharaj here. He's one of the pillars of this temple, always visiting, always inspiring, always also doing service in so many years here. In the beginning, he was one of the key persons here, so we're very glad to have Maharaj here on Zoom. And we have officially half an hour. We're a little bit flexible because until 11 we have Abhishek, so there's some flexibility, but technically after half an hour, Sacinandana Swami's turn would be. Thank you very much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Shri Shri Prahlad Lakshmi Nrsingadev ki jai. So this is a rather unusual Nrsimha Caturdasi festival for Singhachalam. I remember times when we have had great numbers of devotees crowding, packed in the temple on this day, coming from all over Europe and even beyond Europe. So it's a little hard to imagine the situation now. But at the same time, I'm appreciating that all of you who are there at Singhachalam are continuing the service. So with such dedication, such devotion, and such enthusiasm, and that you are indeed performing the full program of service, especially festival service, as I understand you're doing. So this is very wonderful. I want to speak very briefly. I think it's appropriate to say something from the first chapter of Canto 7 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, as the beginning of the account of Nrsingadev's appearance, which we just heard read by His Grace Vaidhyanatha Prabhu so dramatically. Before this, let me offer some prayers. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatang Vitam Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanditamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Prahlada Hridayaladam Bhakta Vidividaranam Sharadinduruchim Vande Parindra Varanam Harim Vagisha Yasya Varane Lakshmim Yasya Chavakshasi Yasyaste Hridaye Samvitam Nrisingamaham Bhaje Shri Nrisingha Jai Nrisingha Jaya Jai Nrisingha Prahladesha Jaya Padma Mukha Padma Bringha Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswating Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashta Praishva Vadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. In the first chapter of Canto 7 of the Bhagavatam, we have introduction to the account which goes over several chapters, actually through chapter 10, of the appearance of Lord Nrsingadev, describing all of the troubles, the action, the drama. We can say that the moment, the height of drama comes at that moment that we just heard, the killing of Hiranyakashipu. The account continues from there, and we may say an important, an essential devotional vision is given to us actually in the 10th chapter, when Prahlad expresses his desire that Hiranyakashipu be blessed by the Lord to have his shelter, showing that Prahlad is completely free from envy. But the envy of Hiranyakashipu earns him the attention of the Lord to the extent that the Lord appears for him. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur has said that we should be grateful for Hiranyakashipu's existence, because he is the cause of Narasimha's appearance. Well, in the beginning of Narada's discussion, which goes over these many chapters, he's responding to Yudhishthira Maharaj. And all of this is being quoted by Shukadev Goswami, who's being asked by Maharaj Parikshit about the Lord's equanimity. He refers to Narada, who is responding to Yudhishthira Maharaj in the Rajasuya sacrifice of King Yudhishthira, at which all those assembled, including, of course, Yudhishthira Maharaj, have just witnessed something very amazing. What have they witnessed? They have seen Lord Krishna slice off the head of Shishupala, and then they have seen the jiva of Shishupal fly across the sky and enter into the body of Lord Sri Krishna. And Krishna has, Yudhishthira has been especially astonished by this and become doubtful and wonder and confused. He has had a moment of cognitive dissonance, we might say, that this person who has been insulting Lord Krishna repeatedly, not once, twice, 3 times, or even 10 times, but 100 times he has insulted Lord Krishna, that he has been honored in the end by entering the Lord. How is this possible? How is this possible? This is shocking. It doesn't, we say in English, it doesn't compute. So Narada is responding, and in the beginning of his response, he makes a point which is surprisingly, we may say, also repeated in the 10th canto within the account of the rasa dance. And this is the idea that, excuse me, that there are so many, all kinds of different emotions can be ways of approaching the Lord. So I want to read first verse number 26. If time would allow, I would go through verse 32, 26, 27, 28 through 32, because these form a kind of section, but I think I don't want to impose on my time allotment. So let's go with verse number 26. Narada Muni says, Tasmat vairanu bandena nirvairena bhayena va snehat kamena va yunjat katanchin nekshate pritak. Therefore, by enmity or by devotional service, by fear, by affection, or by lusty desire. Prabhupada translates kama as lusty desire. By all of these, or any one of them, if a conditioned soul somehow or other concentrates his mind upon the Lord, the result is the same. For the Lord, because of his blissful position, is never affected by enmity or friendship. So there we're, in this verse, we're getting the general principle And Srila Prabhupada in his purport goes into considerable length to say we should not misunderstand that if the Lord is equal or is not affected by either enmity or friendship, therefore we can also approach the Lord with enmity. We can hate the Lord. Well, you can do that, but it may bring consequences that you were not anticipating. Just as Hiranyakashipu did not anticipate the Lord appearing as he did. So a better idea is certainly to worship the Lord favorably. Anukulyasya sankalpa, pratikulyasya varjana, as Prabhupada explains in the purport. Taking or approaching the Lord with in a favorable way, anukula, and rejecting, putting aside pratikula, that which is not favorable. And this, of course, means making distinctions. It means also making choices, discriminating what is favorable, what is not favorable, and of course, learning how to make that discrimination from our acharyas, from Shastra, from associating with devotees. That's all part of our practice. The next verse, though, is interesting in a particular way. Yata vairanubandena martyastan mayatam iyat. Now I have to ask briefly if you are still hearing, because the picture of devotees in Singhachalam suddenly disappeared. So I just want to make sure that you are still there. I'm not getting a response, so this makes me a little doubtful. Let's see. There you are. Okay. Is everything okay now with the connection? Yeah?
Can you hear us?
Yes, I think we're okay now.
We had a computer crash down, but we are back online. We were hearing Hiranyakashipu didn't anticipate.
Oh, yes.
That's the last thing we heard.
Okay. Okay, good. So I just wanted to point out that, of course, we devotees, aspiring devotees, we want to do favorable devotional service. We don't want to follow in the footsteps of Hiranyakashipu, unless, of course, you want to have some unanticipated results like Hiranyakashipu had. We prefer anukula bhakti, favorable bhakti, and pratikula. What is not favorable, we consciously avoid. We turn away from it. And we know how to make these distinctions because we learned from our gurus, from the previous acharyas, from Shastra, Sadhu Shastra Guru Vakya. So we know how to make these choices. But let me move on quickly to verse number 27. Yata vairanubandena martyastan mayatam iyat na tata bhakti yogena iti me nischita mati. Narada Muni continued, by devotional service, one cannot achieve such intense absorption in thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as one can through enmity toward him. That is my opinion. Now, what is going on here? this is very interesting. And Srila Prabhupada explains in his purport that here Narada is being very humble. He is expressing his own mood of disqualification. Prabhupada, one time Srila Prabhupada there was some discussion about who is an advanced devotee, who is less advanced. Prabhupada said, who is advanced? Narada Muni, he is advanced. So there's no question Narada is advanced, but here Prabhupada says that he's expressing his feeling, his own feeling of being not advanced, that it's a kind of, you can say, a devotional lamentation of feeling how unqualified one is. Look at even these demons, even Shishupala, he is, getting liberated. I am just so unqualified. So that is an important point. And there's another point that we might take. I found the commentary from Srila Jiva Goswami on this verse. And it's interesting. I'll try to read, the introduction to the verse. And then he says, Vairanubandena iti Vayasya api. Even the mood of fear and vaira, of envy or being an enemy, upalakshanam, this distinction may be there. Yata shaigriena, by immediacy, tanmayatam. Tanmayatam is in this verse, so he's quoting tanmayatam. And he's then glossing it with tat avishtatam. Avishtatam, we know this word avesha from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Many times we hear prema avesha. Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is prema avesha. He is absorbed, he is possessed by prema. So this same idea, tat avishtatam, being absorbed in the Lord in an intense way. Bhakti yogena vihitatvam atra matra buddhya, so kriyamanina. So the idea is doing bhakti yoga that is vihita, which is prescribed, and having this mentality, this buddhi, only have this mentality that I'm doing it because this is what has to be done. Vihita, these are the rules, so I'm doing this. Jiva Goswami says, to natata, that kind of bhakti yoga will not have the same benefit, or it will not achieve the same such intense absorption as being inimical in an intense way. In other words, what he's talking about here is he's making the distinction between bhava bhakti and vaidhi bhakti. And he's saying bhava bhakti means a more intense feeling for the Lord, intense feeling and absorption in the Lord. And he says this very surprising thing, even vaira anubandha, having an inimical attitude toward the Lord, that can also be taken as a kind of bhava. Now, I want to say, however, at the same time, because one could be discouraged by hearing this, that, oh, I'm trying to follow Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti and, I'm not going to get the same absorption as Bhava Bhakti. So to reassure you, we have, again, Srila Jiva Goswami writing in his Tattva Sandarbha. There he's explaining that, yes, there is sadhana bhakti, which is what we learn by instruction, and there is prema bhakti. Prema bhakti is not something one can get by instruction, but rather tat prasada heto, tat prema phala garbhatvat. It's compared to a birth from the mother. By the practice of sadhana can be born prema bhakti by the mercy of the Lord, prasad, tat prasada hetu, caused by the mercy of the Lord. So be reassured that our practice of bhakti in regulation is not holding us back. It is bringing us forward to prema bhakti in due course of time. The next two verses, and I'll just summarize ever so briefly, is giving an analogy. And the analogy is of what's translated here as a grass worm, a kita, is in a hole of a wall, kept confined there by a bee. And so this grass worm meditates on the bee and later becomes a bee. So where the attention goes, that is where we go, is the general principle. And therefore, whether thinking of the Lord one way or another, however one is thinking, this will bring us to the Lord. And so, with verse number 30, and I believe the first two lines may be exactly repeated in the 10th canto. Verse 30 says, Kamat dveshat bhayat snehat yata bhaktieshvare manaha aveshya tat agam hitva bhavas tat gatim gataha. Many, many persons have attained liberation simply by thinking of Krishna with great attention and giving up sinful activities. This great attention may be due to lusty desires, inimical feelings, fear, affection, or devotional service. And then Narada says, I shall now explain how one receives Krishna's mercy simply by concentrating one's mind upon him. And then he gives examples in the next verse, Gopya Kamat Mayat Kamso Veshat Chaidyadayo Nripa Sambandhat Vrishnaya Snehat Yuyam Bhaktya Vayam Vivo. My dear King Yudhishthir, the gopis, by their lusty desires, Kamsa by his fear, Shishupal and other kings by envy, the Yadus by their familiar relationship with Krishna, you, Pandavas, by your great affection for Krishna, and we, the general devotees, by our devotional service, have obtained the Lord's mercy. And after giving these examples, then the, not exactly final verse, but the verse which sort of completes this section. It says, Katamopi navena syat panchanam purusham prati tasmat kenapi upayena mana krishne niveshayet. Somehow or other, one must consider the form of Krishna very seriously. Then, by one of the 5 different processes mentioned above, one can return home, back to Godhead. Atheists like King Vena, however, being unable to think of Krishna's form in any of these 5 ways, cannot attain salvation. Therefore, one must somehow think of Krishna, whether in a friendly way or inimically. So the last 2 lines, Tasmat kena api upayena mana krishna niveshayet. Tasmat means therefore, and typically it signals a conclusion of an argument. So Narada Muni is, you can say, constructing a kind of argument here. And now he comes to the conclusion, and the conclusion is kena api, somehow or other. Upayena, upaya, by some means. Mana krishne niveshayet. Niveshayet is a form of the verb which is like an instruction. This is what you should do. Excuse me. You should absorb yourself because this is the whole issue. The whole matter here is about becoming absorbed. In verse 30, avesha, becoming absorbed in the Lord. How? Mana Krishna, put your mind in Krishna. Yes. And if it comes to which rules to follow in order to do that, there are 2 essential rules, as we know. The rules are to always remember Krishna and never forget him. Or on this day of Narasimha's appearance day, always remember Narasimhadev and never forget him. Shri Prahlad Lakshmi Narasimhadeva ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Kshetra Maharaj. Kshetra Maharaj ki jai. So Sacinandana Maharaj already is there on the screen joining us. You can hear us, Maharaj?
Yes, very well. And I could also hear the excellent class of our Krishna Kshetra Maharaj very well, where he pleaded for absorption of the mind in Krishna or Lord Nrsimhadev. Wonderful, yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us again. So, yeah, so at least half an hour you can talk. Kanana Maharaj is not yet in the Zoom meeting, but I'm sure he will join soon. So we're very grateful to have you again here. The afternoon you gave a very nice seminar. So welcome back. Sacinandana Maharaj ki jai.
I'm going to turn off my videos so that all of our focus can be on Sacinandana Swami.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale. Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paskatyade Satarine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare all please Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Narasimha Sri Narasimha Jaya Jaya Narasimha Dev Praladesha Jaya Padma Padma Ringa Jai Narasimha Sri Narasimha Jaya Jaya Narasimha Dev Praladesha Jaya Padma Mukha Padma Ringa Srila Prabhupada ki jai. My dear devotees, friends, supporters, and all of you who either watched this presentation of our online Nishingade festival now, or who will do so in the future, I greet you. I want to also congratulate our devotees from Singhachalam for their steady, very steady effort to celebrate Lord Nrsimhadev. They are so determined that they have even learned to master this complicated technology of online presentations in order to, yes, make the glories of Lord Nrsimhadev known to the various people who are interested and who cannot visit now. In my presentation today, I wish to highlight an aspect of the Nrsimha Leela which has come to my awareness only lately in my spiritual life. I regret that I have not paid attention to it enough earlier. And I do hope with this presentation to make you aware of this particular aspect of Lord Nrsimhadev, because I feel if you become aware of this, your whole approach to bhakti might change in a very, very positive way. So let me start immediately. When Lord Nrsimhadev, after Lord Nrsimhadev has appeared, Prahlad Maharaj says beautiful prayers to the Lord. And in one of the prayers, he says, Rupang Nrsimha Vibhaya Jana Smaranti. He says, all the worlds have achieved great satisfaction because of the death of this demon. They will always remember your auspicious form of Nrsimha in order to become free from fear. See, Lord Nrsimhadev has the most briefest appearance which we can find amongst all the avatars of God. He appeared for exactly 48 minutes. 2 praharas, 24, twice 24 minutes, and then he again left. But this was a very significant appearance because, as Prahlad Maharaj says here, all the worlds in the future have achieved great satisfaction by this. They will always remember your auspicious form of Nrsimha in order to become free from fear. This is significant. To be in this material world means you're stuck in Kuntaloka, the place of anxieties. It is unavoidable as it is to get wet when you go through rain. In the same unavoidable way, you will be anxious, you will be worried, you will be distressed, you will be full of fear as you go through your life's journey. But by remembering, as our Krishna Kshetra Maharaj said, upayaya, somehow, by some means, somehow you have to get this. Either with a picture you can remember Lord Nrsimhadev, or by reading about his pastimes you can think of him, or by having darshan of his beautiful form, either online or standing there in the temple room. Somehow, by upaya, some means, somehow. And upaya is, like a means, like a bow, for instance, is a means to hurl an arrow to a far distant target. So somehow you have to find how this can work for you. You have to find something like a bow, a means that can bring you into this place of remembering, or as our Krishna Kshetra Maharaj has said so beautifully, we have to become aveshya, absorbed in thoughts. You all know mechanic chanting or mechanic execution of devotional service. That does not last you for a long time. You will eventually join the frustrated camp and not continue. So yes, the world will, if they can remember you, they will become free from the rainfall of fear and misery which is here in this material world. That is the pronunciation of Prahlad Maharaj. Now, inside of this pronunciation is the point which I would like you to ponder about and think about, is a special contribution of Prahlad Maharaj in this Nrsimha Leela. It is Vaishnav compassion. In another prayer by Prahlad Maharaj, he makes this very, very clear. I have it here. How he is so compassionate. How a devotee of Lord Nrsimhadev is just a friend, a well-wisher, who wants others to benefit, who wants others to become encouraged and free of fear. Here is the verse, I will read it from the 7th canto, 9th chapter, text 43. One moment. Naivod vijay paradurachaya vaitaranyas tvadviryagaya nama amritamak nashita shochetato vimukachetasa indriyata maya sukaya varamudvahato vimudham. Prahlad Maharaj expresses a mood, something that goes on in his heart as he stands before the Lord and prays to him. He says, "O best of the great personalities." Now I want to tell you, I personally am not at all afraid of material existence. For wherever I stay, I'm fully absorbed in thoughts of your glories and activities. You know, someone who remembers Krishna, he will become free of this fear and anxiety and so on. But then he says, but I am still worried, and I want to tell you why. My concern is for these fools and rascals who are making such elaborate plans for material happiness and who are busy maintaining their families, societies, and countries for this end. I'm simply concerned with love, affection for them. So this is Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj has seen other examples of spiritual people who are not concerned like this. He describes what he has seen. He says, "My Lord," this comes in the 7th canto, 9th chapter, text 44. "My Lord, I see many sages who are generally interested only in their own deliverance. They practice the vow of silence, and they wander in solitary places in South Bavaria, in the Himalayas, not caring for the deliverance of others." Prahlad Maharaj says, yeah, I have seen people who have no compassion in their heart. They think only about their own benefit. When we turn to spiritual life, we first unavoidably or invariably feel the miseries of material existence, and we look for a solution for the miseries. Then we hear, by the mercy of the devotees, some Sambandha Gyan, or philosophy, which convinces us that I'm the soul and I have a relationship to Krishna, and this world is only there so that I can correct my inattention towards Krishna. And then the third thing is, we look for an experience in Krishna consciousness. We want parishanubhava, we want bhakti, we want also detachment from this world. We need this, no? And if we are not careful, my dear devotees, this initial impulse of wanting to become free from miseries and therefore taking to spiritual life because we hear of a misery-free situation, some connection with Krishna. If we are not careful, then this turns into spiritual selfishness, which hardens the heart. The more healthy development, as spoken here by Prahlad Maharaj, is to care for others in a spirit of compassion. I must correct myself to try to gain your attention for this point. I have included wrongly with a little remark that devotees in Singhachalam might also not care for others and just be reclusive. But the very fact that you always have festivals and you go online and you have made the most beautiful video in the universe to announce this festival and attract online lost online souls to this festival. It shows you are compassionate and you're thinking of the welfare. So I have to, that was not a good and proper remark. But Prahlad Maharaj addresses here a point. He has seen saints who are on their spiritual journey, who just hide in some cave in the Himalayas, and they don't care for the deliverance of others. And then he says that I'm different. I have a different idea. He says, as for me, however, I do not wish to be liberated alone, leaving aside all these poor fools. I do not see any shelter other than you for those wandering blindly in this world. Beautiful. This is what all acharyas show, this great desire to help others. And why this is beneficial, we will see in a little moment. This mood of spiritual compassion, whereby you care for others, makes your bhakti steady. Whereas when you become only concerned about your own progress and welfare and well-being, it shrinks your heart. We find this idea, how being compassionate to others, described in the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam. There Kapila Muni gives an instruction to his father, actually, Kadamba Muni, who will go as a sannyasi wandering. He says, by compassionate caring for all living beings, you will see me spread everywhere. In other words, compassion, he says, is something which will help you to have ultimate God realization. I was really surprised when I read this, and I thought compassion and caring for others, I did not notice that I'm in a movement which is all about that, spreading Krishna consciousness, going on Sankirtan, preaching. It has this idea to save the poor souls. And as I became aware of it, I noticed, my God, it's all over our scriptures. It's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavat. It's in the Bhagavatam. This instruction for devotees to be compassionate towards others. There is a very interesting document of this in Prahlad Maharaj's preaching to his school friends. You remember, he was in a school where he was actually to be trained as the heir to this vast empire of Hiranyakashipu. His father wanted to make sure that he knew everything which it took, according to Hiranyakashipu's idea, to rule a vast empire. He wanted his son to learn diplomacy. He wanted him to learn to make war, how to suppress the opponent. He certainly wanted to make sure that his son would know how to have very novel ideas of sense clarifications. And there was a school. If you go now to the sacred place related to the appearance of Lord Nrsimhadev, that is Ahobilam in South India, you will see, this is very interesting, you will see many beautiful temples of, beautiful, I would say, remote temples of Lord Nrsimhadev, and yes, also very huge temples of Nrsimhadev. And you will also be able to visit the school of Prahlad Maharaj. And believe it or not, I mean, I saw it with my own eyes. On the ground of the school, there is still some lines of writing. It looks a little bit like if you go into a modern school in Bavaria, for instance, or anywhere, you will find on the school benches, you know, people who were, children who were bored and who were cutting with their, what is it, their pocket knives, something foolish into the wood. I mean, I used to do this when I was so terribly bored in school. So I had my my knife, and I would carve something into the wood of the tables just to survive the boredom. You find on the ground, they were sitting on the ground in those times, you find ample letters, you know, which are there. You should see it. It's really amazing. It's really endearing also. So I don't know if they cut out of boredom or that I can't say, but there are the letters in the school of Prahlad Maharaj. So when the teachers went out of the classroom, Prahlad Maharaj would get up, and he would start to all these aristocratic children of the Rakshasas, the demon followers of his father, and he would preach to them. It's quite interesting what he said. He would say to them, "See, my dear friends, you may think your friends here are most dear, but that's not true. It's that person who's in the heart of everyone who's most dear, who's our best friend." He would, and he's present everywhere. This one you should serve. But his friend said, "It's so difficult to realize God, and we are so young." And Prahlad made the point, no, it's not actually so it's not difficult at all, because first of all, the Lord is so intimately related to everyone. He's in the heart of everyone. But then he gave them a process. He said, it's in 7:624, "Tasmat saveshu bhuteshu dayam kuruta soridam bhavam asuram unmuchya jayatus yat yadokshaya." He said, therefore, do this one thing: show compassionate affection to all living beings and be their well-wishers. And please give up your demoniac nature. Thus the Supreme Lord will be satisfied with you, just by this thing. Dayam, it means compassion. No? It's the highest dharma, says Bhaktivinoda Thakur, of the Vaishnavas in this world. No? They need to be compassionate towards others, alleviate the suffering. Therefore, show compassionate affection to all living beings and be their well-wishers. And please give up your demoniac nature. You know, that's the selfishness and the desire to enjoy on your own, separate from the Lord, and pleasure. And thus the Supreme Lord will be satisfied. Let's be practical, my dear everyone. When I understood this personally in my life, I decided to put my service on another foundation, that is, I try to do good for others. Even now in lockdown, as I go out in the forest and meet people who are also on their walk, I'm trying to give them Krishna consciousness in some ways. I'm trying to talk, I'm trying to, here we give prasadam, you know, somehow that people get some relief from the, present anxieties and worries and the great fear of death and what happens afterwards with them. No? This is good. I would like to give all of us here some suggestions how to engage in compassionate welfare activities. It starts first at home. At home means in our community. Very often, a very simple thing one can do with one's fellow devotees who live in the same temple is to give them a quality time where they can, where discussions about Krishna consciousness can be made, and where doubts or obstacles in their life, which may be there, can be cured. You can just preach, not preach, you can help. Oh my God, I'm seeing. Time is there. Maharaji, I see our Kadamba Kanana Maharaj. I will just take 2 more minutes. Well, you are always very kind. No, but we feel humbled by your presence, so I will just quickly end it. My dear devotees, as you are now in an ashram, living in the Singhachalam, try to bring compassion in your dealings. It starts by understanding a person first, and then see how you can be of an inspiration in their life, a help. Outside, you can also help. You can ask in the brahmachari ashram, you can say, I'm just washing, please give me your kurta and other things. I'm just washing, I'm very good in washing. Everything becomes very clean and fresh when I wash. I'm extremely talented in this. And you can help in some ways. This is an example. That will be very good. And you please the Lord. You please the Lord. That's the idea. Outside of the ashram, you can see, now soon the lockdown will be lifted, hopefully. There's a realistic hope. It's not just... Then you can think, when guests come, to make your place so attractive. Already I see, with great happiness, I'm so pleased. So many good young people come. There are so many good people. Oh, it's Nishinga Kshetra used to be an isolated place, or Singhachalam used to be isolated, but wow, now so much preaching is going on. Ananta Krishna has this beautiful online outreach preaching program. You all the time make your festivals very accessible, that even now we can go on online. Or you do Harinam in Passau or Munich, and you have Sankirtan going from the place. My dear devotees, my point here is compassionate care of others is just a very good means to please Krishna and to also remember Krishna. In leaving this call now, I will be there when Kadamba Kanana Maharaj will now address all of us. I must tell you, I came to Krishna consciousness and I was young, I was foolish, and I was angry at the society. This is a very explosive mixture. These people are potential troublemakers. But I did, by Prabhupada's mercy and the mercy of the devotees, I became engaged in preaching Krishna consciousness at a rather young age. And at that time, I just wanted to convince others and defeat others and show the superiority of the Hare Krishna way over others. But on reading our books, hearing Prabhupada's lectures, becoming impressed by his own example of a very compassionate preacher, I understood I must bring a certain maturity to my service. But then, just a little later only, it became clear compassion is so important. This is what we see in the Nrsimhadev Leela. It's wrong to think Nrsimhadev is about killing, hardcore violence. No, that's not the idea. The idea is to deliver the fallen souls from the fear of material existence. That is very, very, very wonderful. So Hare Krishna, I went a little over time, but I think our Maharaj, please, you go over time also. We are known for, we Hare Krishnas are never so much on time, but you please also go. Thank you very much. Sri Nrsimhadeva ki jai.
Sacinandana Swami Maharaj ki jai. Thank you very much, Maharaj, for your lecture, and a very nice point that we should be compassionate to each other in order to progress in our communities and our efforts. Thank you very much. And now, Maharaj, Kadamba Maharaj, we can hear, yeah, you can hear us for sure the whole time, but now we have to test if we can hear Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, I will be on the lecture and I will be many times with you, but I will now take my video off because I want all of you to focus entirely on what our Kadamba Kanana Maharaj will share with us. Hare Krishna.
Om Jnanatimanandasya Gyanandana Salakaya Shakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Chaitanya Bestam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Just 1 second, just one short announcement. We wanted to actually ask for Maharaj, Sacinandana Maharaj and Kshetra Maharaj to remain after you finish speaking, because we would like to have a short discussion also at the end. So yeah, please don't leave. We have time until 11. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Kadamba Maharaj ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Of course, if the Swamis have urgent other matters to attend to, then I would be very happy if they would not stay. But the point of compassion is a wonderful point to begin with. We can look at the mood of Lord Nrsimhadev And we can also look at the mood of Prahlad Maharaj. And we're seeing compassion in both. I have my own personal experience in life where I was in India, and somehow or other I became very much injured. And at that time, I realized that I was getting some serious purification from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it was very intense purification. Sometime after, I went to Mayapur. And when I came before Lord Nrsingadev, for the first time, I was a little bit afraid. I was a little bit afraid from, oh, you are heavy. You are really heavy. I had just gone through a real heavy experience. And so I felt some fear. And we have our famous prayer where Om Namo Bhagavate Narasimhaya, where we are praying to Lord Nrsingadev and praying to him to take to drive away, to enter our heart and drive away the material desires from our heart. So I was thinking, do I really want to invite a lion in my heart with Vajranaka and Vajradanta, with thunderbolt nails and thunderbolt teeth to take out my material desires? But then I meditated on Lord Nrsingadev, who appeared from the pillar and was greatly angry with Hiranyakasipu, greatly, and who could not be pacified by anyone. But as soon as Prahlad manifested, he became fully pacified. He became very pacified, and he became very gentle. And then thinking about it, yes, Lord Nrsingadev appeared out of his compassion for Prahlad, because Prahlad, after all, was under severe threat from Hiranyakasipu. And from a material point of view, what chance did he have as a 5-year-old against this very powerful demon? But the Lord personally, out of compassion, appeared in this form of half man, half lion, and eradicated Hiranyakasipu. So, and then we see his anger remains, and afterwards, as soon as he sees Prahlad, he's overwhelmed with affection and very, very kind and compassionate. So in this way, when we're thinking of Lord Nrsingadev driving out the material desires from our heart, when the devotee goes before the Lord and prays to the Lord, please remove these material desires, then the devotee is aware that what needs to be done needs to be done, and he turns to the Lord. He turns to the Lord. My Lord, please, I don't want these material desires, and yet I have them. So he turns to the Lord knowing that the Lord is compassionate, because we want devotional service, because we want to be devotees. And we're only praying to him to remove these material desires because we are unable to give up the conditioning from so many lifetimes. Prahlad in his prayers extensively speaks about the influence of time. And he also, at one point, he is there as a 5-year-old, and he is saying, from personal experience, I have seen that material life doesn't work. That sense gratification is not successful, that all the opulence of this world is not enough because everything is ended by time. So it's interesting when a 5-year-old starts speaking and saying from experience, right? Because he just, but Prahlad sees himself not only from the perspective of his 5-year-long lifespan, but he sees himself from the perspective of many, many lifetimes being involved in the material world. And then coming to this realization at the end of it and realizing, no, these material things are of no benefit because they all will be destroyed by the influence of time. So Prahlad is very much highlighting the influence of time that takes away everything in this world. And Prahlad sees that his true refuge is at the Supreme Lord. This he has very thoroughly realized, that the real shelter is in the eternal and not in the temporary. We may not be as realized as Prahlad, but still we have chosen this life in Krishna consciousness. And that means that our priority is the eternal relationship with Krishna. And therefore, we also approach the Lord for his compassion. We just approach him for in his mood of kindness, yes, upon the devotee, and we pray for purification, yes. So in this way, we can contemplate a little bit on the compassionate side of Lord Nrsingadev. Then on the other hand, there's also the compassionate side of Prahlad Maharaj. There are these two very famous verses, and I'll read them. That is the 7th canto, 9th chapter, text 43 and 44. Naivo dvije para duratya vaitaranyas tvadvirya gayana mahamrita magna chittaha soche tato vimukta cetasa indriyarta maya sukaya param udvahato vimodan. O best of the great personalities, I'm not at all afraid of material existence, for wherever I stay, I'm fully absorbed in thoughts of your glories and activities. So that is the first point. It says, Bhayam dvitiya binivesita syat, that when we are separated from the Supreme Lord, then there will be fear. But one who is always engaged in glorification of the Supreme Lord is also very sure, Raksisya titi visvaso, has great faith that the Lord will always protect him. So Prahlad has this great faith. He's not afraid of material existence, for he is always absorbed in thoughts of the glories and activities of the Lord. But my concern is only for the fools and rascals who are making elaborate plans for material happiness and maintaining their families, societies, and countries. I'm simply concerned with love for them. Yes. The fools and rascals who built huge buildings on this earth, who try to build kingdoms, who build societies that are aimed to enjoy the material world. These are fools and rascals. Fools that they are looking for happiness in these things, and rascals because they stubbornly pursue this material happiness at any cost, and even don't care if they cause suffering to other living beings in the cause of their desire to enjoy, who deny the Supreme Lord because they do not wish to submit to the directions of the Supreme Lord. And therefore rascals, these fools and rascals, yes, they make elaborate plans for material happiness and maintaining their family, societies, and countries. Yes, and Hiranyakasipu, one chapter dedicated to Hiranyakasipu in the 7th canto is called Hiranyakasipu Terrorizes the Universe. It is at that time that even the demigods, right? Even the demigods lived in fear of Hiranyakasipu. When he only raised his eyebrow, the whole universe was in fear. Hiranyakasipu was taking all the oblations that were offered to the demigods. He had taken their position. And he was also managing the material affairs. He was also making sure that the material world remained a place of enjoyment. Sometimes we come to one country and everything is very beautiful. Everything is very, very much decorated. And one might just think, oh, this must be in the mode of goodness. No, it's in the mode of passion. Because all this was done, all this decoration and all this beauty was simply done for enjoying the senses. Yes. So, Prahlad Maharaj is seeing that these living beings has fallen prey to the material energy. Just like a man may fall prey to the beauty of a woman. But not only is the man falling prey to that beauty, the woman is also falling prey to that beauty. Because of her beauty, she thinks she has a lot of facility for sense enjoyment. But actually this beauty is the material energy. It is taking us away from the real goal of life. So Prahlad is looking upon the conditioned souls and see how the bewildered spirit souls under the influence of the three modes of material natures think himself the doer of activities that are carried out by nature. Oh. Yes, the next verse, Prayena Deva Muneya Swavimukti Kama Monam Charanti Vijanena Parattanista Naitan Vihaya Kripanan Vimamuksa Eka Nan Yam Tadasya Saranam Brahmato Napasya. My dear Lord Nrsimhadeva, I see that there are many saintly persons indeed, but they're interested only in their own deliverance, not caring for the big cities and towns. They go to the Himalayas or the forest to meditate with vows of silence. They're not interested in delivering others. As for me, however, I do not wish to be liberated alone, leaving aside all these poor fools and rascals. I know that without Krishna consciousness, without taking shelter of your lotus feet, one cannot be happy. Therefore, I wish to bring them back to the shelter at your lotus feet. Yes, so bhukti, mukti, siddhi, kami. Bhukti those who are trying to enjoy the senses, those who are looking for liberation, or those who are looking for mystic perfections, sakala ashanta, they are all not peaceful. They're all under the influence of lust. But Krishna Bhakta Niskama Ate Vishanta, that the devotee of Krishna, he is becoming free from any other desire than the desire to please the Lord. And therefore he's peaceful. Yes. So Prahlad thoroughly understands and developed this mood of wanting to deliver the conditioned souls. He is concerned with love. The most wonderful quality of love of God is that it is not only focused on the Supreme Lord, but that it also includes the creation of the Lord. And therefore, the devotees, they do not just love Krishna, but they also love all living beings. And as such, they are always thinking of all living beings in love. And so they are somehow or other absorbed in trying to deliver these living beings. So yes, this is the nature of the devotee. He has natural love for all living beings because he sees them also as being connected with the Lord and belonging with the Lord. And he can see their potential, and that their potential is to increase the ocean of transcendental love. And somehow or other now, these unfortunate living beings are bewildered. So he feels compassion. So in this way, I picked up a little bit on that spirit of compassion, where our Sacinandana Maharaj, when I logged on, I came from the temple in Radhadesh, and I just joined your program in the middle because I was here in the temple. And when I came on, then Sacinandana Maharaj was speaking and was very nice. And Maharaj was just making that beautiful point about the compassionate nature of Lord Nrsimhadev, and who appeared out of his deep affection for his devotee to protect him. And then we see how the devotee has a deep affection for the Lord, and that includes the entire creation of the Lord. It includes all living beings. And in this way, the Lord is the well-wisher of all living beings, and the devotee also becomes the well-wisher of all living beings. And this is the beauty of spiritual relationship, that they're based on giving, that they're based on increasing the mercy, that they're based, that everyone is making a contribution to bring more and more mercy into this world by all his words and deeds. And let us take that to heart as the essence of Nrsimha Caturdasi, this spirit of turning away from a hard-hearted, selfish, demoniac mentality to the mentality of just sharing and increasing the mercy of devotional service to anyone and everyone in this world. You know, okay, that will be my contribution today. Thank you very, very much. And thank you all for listening.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much for your lecture. Kanana Maharaj ki jai. So now we would like to open the forum for some questions. So if there's some specific questions, already there's somebody there. And yeah, if you could, if Maharaj Sacinandana, if you could also come back. Awesome. Now we have all three. Thank you very much. So Shriya Prabhu has a question.
May I make one humble suggestion?
Yes.
If I would be present at Singhachalam now, I would suggest that all the devotees in the temple get up for 1 minute and stretch.
Only in Himachal.
You've been sitting.
I saw many sleeping faces already.
Also, we also stretch. Oh.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Sitting.
Yes, somehow we sit for such long periods of time. Okay.
You are the compassionate well-wisher of all of us.
Hare Krishna, dear Swamis. Hare Krishna. My question is in the first to Krishna Kshetra Swami Maharaj. My question is that, like Shishupal, he was envious of Krishna and still he got liberated. In the Bhagavad Gita, I also read what's confusing me is that Krishna says that I put the living beings who are envious of me again in abominable verse in the material world.
Mm-hmm.
So how is it to understand that at one point it is stated that Krishna is even unequal. He is giving everyone, just even if they are even envious of him, he gives them liberation. In Bhagavad Gita, it's also stated that people who are envious of him, they get repeated birth.
Yes, very nice question. Let me begin by saying that one of this points to one of our challenges in reading and understanding and appreciating Shastra. And that is that it can often happen that we come across what seem to be contradictory statements. And naturally, when we see a contradiction, we want it to be resolved for our own peace of mind, for our own peace of intelligence. Now, here I want to, I want to first call attention to the fact that we have a course. Devotees have been developing a course over a long period of time, which gradually we hope is going to be available for devotees all over the world. It's a course in what we call hermeneutics. Now, the word hermeneutics comes originally from the Greek. It just means interpretation, How do we interpret scripture? Are there procedures by which we can draw from scripture in the proper way in order to get proper conclusions, siddhanta? And of course, the answer is yes, there are procedures. And what this course teaches is how to follow those procedures in order to come to conclusions. But one of the lessons in the course has been taught now a couple of times. I've been involved in somewhat tangentially in developing the course. It's come from the Shastra Advisory Council of the GBC. One of the lessons, it's an 8-lesson course, and lesson number 6, I've been the one to facilitate this lesson, is addressing the question what to do when there's no clear conclusion forthcoming. What do we do when there is when there are opposite statements and we don't find a conclusion for them? What do we do when we come up when we encounter what seem like deep paradoxes in our theology? And you will encounter paradox. If you look a little carefully, you will find paradoxes. So anyway, that was just a little calling attention that something is there. So you've pointed out that indeed Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, Tanaham dvishata kruran sangsareshu naradamang shipam yajashram ashubam asurisheva yonishu. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, I perpetually cast into the ocean of material existence into various demonic species of life. And he doesn't stop there. Krishna in the next verse says, Asurim yonim appanna mudha janmani janmani mam apraptyaiva konteya tato yanti adamangatim, attaining repeated birth among the species of demoniac life, O son of Kunti. Such persons can never approach me. Gradually, they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. Mudha, they're called. And mam aprapya eva, they do not reach me. And so your point is well taken. How is it that Shishupal attained Krishna, prapya? And is he not also mudha? Is he not also an asura who is mudha? So here comes another example of this state of confusion of what's that expression, technical expression, I had it before, that there's a conflict. So one of the procedures that one can take in such case is to look at context. What is the context in which Krishna speaks these verses in chapter 16? And then what is the context of the story, the account of Shishupal in the Bhagavatam? And can we get a more nuanced understanding of what Shastra is telling us by looking at the context. So I won't try to go into this now because it's too short notice to think about it myself or talk about it. Maybe one of our other Swamis wants to illuminate us further to come to a clear decision. But what I would leave you with is just this point, that when we sometimes come upon an apparent contradiction, don't let it disturb your faith. Don't immediately jump to the conclusion, oh, Shastra is contradictory, therefore I cannot invest my faith in this Shastra. This is, there are too many contradictions. Don't come to that conclusion, but rather allow yourself to live with the contradiction for some time, and eventually a solution will reveal itself. One example of this is in the case of Srila Prabhupada. He tells us, and this relates back to Prahlad Maharaj, that Srila Prabhupada was once in the mutt where his Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, was present. And suddenly someone called out, "Shop, shop, there's a snake." And Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur called back, "Kill it." And Prabhupada, at that time, a more or less new devotee, we can say, and he was a householder, he heard Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur say, kill the snake. And he was shocked because he thought, I thought sadhus are always compassionate. They would never order violence to someone or any living being. But he didn't say anything because he thought, well, maybe I don't understand. Years later, Srila Prabhupada came across the prayer by Sri Prahlad that says, Modeta sadhur apivrishchikat sarpa hatya. The sadhus are pleased when a snake or a scorpion is killed. So when Prabhupada heard that or read that, he said, he felt, now I understand. But it was years before that clarification came to him. Hare Krishna. Would either of you like to, Maharajas, like to say something more on this contradiction?
Hare Krishna, just very, very briefly, I think this is very valuable what Krishna Kshetra Maharaj told us. When we see contradictions or paradoxes to our mind happening, we need to study a little bit the context in which these statements were made, and then we know. Now, as far as this particular question is, I feel you have answered it in your lecture in the 7th canto, 1st chapter, text 32. There is the idea of somehow, if someone concentrates his mind, even if it's done with enmity, on Krishna, then they attain a high destination, salvation, or any type of salvation. The Bhagavad Gita doesn't speak of people who turn to, who think of Krishna with enmity. It talks about people who don't think of Krishna at all. They are just really forgetful of Krishna. So this verse says, gives us an example of a person of the Bhagavad Gita refers to it. It says the atheistic king Vena did not think of Krishna in any of the above 5 ways, and thus did not get salvation. Therefore, the conclusion, somehow or other, one should focus the mind on Lord Krishna. For instance, Kamsa was also a demon, but he thought day and night of Krishna. No? Therefore, he is an example of someone who thought of Krishna, but Vena is an example of someone who thought not of Krishna. And therefore, for Kamsa, he is in the category of Shishupal and all these who thought of Krishna and went to a very high destination, either in the spiritual world. There are various types of liberation. But of Vena we don't hear like this. He was not thinking of Krishna. So,
Very nice.
Then, if I may just pick up the thread where Sacinandana Maharaj referred to that verse in the 7th canto, Gopya Kamat, Bhayat Kamso Dvesas Chaitanyayam Nipa, Vrishna Sambandha Yuyam Bhaktivayam Vibho. That verse is saying the gopis, by their lusty desires, Kansa by his fear, Sisupal and other such kings by their envy, the Vrishnis by their family relationships, and the ordinary devotees by their hard work in devotional service, all attain the mercy of the Lord. So Sacinandana Maharaj elaborated on that point. And so yes, the focus is there, of course, in somehow or other, even a negative quality like fear or envy that is intensely connected with Krishna can also invoke the mercy of the Lord, although it's not anakulyena, it is not favorable. But that is not ordinarily so. Therefore, ordinarily, the principle of the Bhagavad Gita applies, that birth after birth, we take birth in demoniac wombs and for further purification. But the one element that is there is the special mercy of the Lord when he is personally present. When the Lord is personally present, because he is the supreme pure, and therefore when these demons are killed by the Supreme Lord, then they get additional mercy beyond their focus on the Supreme Lord, but they also get that mercy of the association of the Lord and become further purified, and therefore generally attain Sayuja Mukti, right? Generally can merge into the existence of the Supreme Lord. In some cases, when there's some devotional service, then even further, like in the case of Putana, who was even promoted to Golok as a nurse of Krishna. So it's that special presence of the Lord that makes the entire situation an exception to the normal situation. And that way the contradiction is resolved.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, thank you very much. This was a very amazing sequence. getting deeper and deeper, resolving this question. And your second question, any other devotees who have a question?
Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much for the nice lectures. I wanted to ask Krishna Kshetra Maharaj, or you all also talked about absorbing oneself or putting the mind on Krishna. I wanted to ask what to do when there's so much nonsense in the mind that you rarely can focus on Krishna really.
Hare Krishna. This is a good question for which I have to start by being honest and saying I'm experiencing the same problem. The first step, I would say, is to recognize, and you're already doing that because otherwise you wouldn't be able to ask this question. But the first step is to recognize, oh, this is nonsense. Or it may not be nonsense as such, but it may be irrelevant at the moment. In other words, what is relevant now? I'm calling out to Krishna, and I always, when we're chanting Maha Mantra, I always like to remind devotees that we are, from a Sanskrit grammatical perspective, we're directly calling the Lord. It's actually a direct service to the Lord. O Krishna, O Rama, O Hari, O Hara. And so whatever we're thinking, it may be something of practical value we need to deal with at some time, but we don't need to deal with it while we're chanting. I like our God brother Mahatma Prabhu's, one of his affirmations. He has this little book, 20 affirmations, japa affirmations. One of them is, I get out of my mind and into my heart. I have it right here. No, more precisely, he says, I am, because this is an affirmation, I am out of my mind and in my heart. Now, in English, this can have a kind of double meaning. When someone is acting in a strange or a foolish or a crazy way, or we ourselves, then we may say, oh, he's out of his mind. He's out of his mind. He's just going crazy. But the other meaning, that Mahatma Prabhu is referring to here is, rather than bouncing around endlessly within the mind with, as you say, all of the nonsense, I jump, I make a leap of faith, as the Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard put it, a leap of faith. I make a leap of faith from my mind to my heart. It's and he's saying it as an affirmation. I am out of my mind and in my heart, fully present to the holy names when I chant. Affirmation means it may not technically be true just yet, but I'm anticipating to make it true by affirming that it's possible for me to do, and therefore I do my best. Now, another point is, as I said, these thoughts are coming in the mind and they sort of bounce around in the mind. It becomes like an echo chamber. Sometimes it seems to go on endlessly with everything except Krishna. And fortunately, however, we have also our intelligence, our buddhi. And one of the most powerful means of accessing our intelligence is with a question, a challenging question, a gently challenging question. And the question can be simply, my dear mind, where are you? That question is not coming from your mind, it's coming from your intelligence. And by asking yourself that question, you're disrupting the whole echo chamber of your mind, and you're opening it. And when you open it to the intelligence, that can then bring you, because the intelligence is very close to the soul, that can bring you very quickly back to your heart. Hare Krishna. Other points from others of you? This Kadamba Kanana Maharaj, maybe?
Well, I was thinking of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Nectar of Devotion, which describes that the state of pure devotional service is attained through cultivation, Krishna Anushilanam, and that in the earliest then we get an extensive description of sadhana bhakti, and in sadhana bhakti we get a description of 64 limbs of bhakti. Then when we are categorizing these 64 limbs of bhakti, then we see that all these limbs of bhakti are engaging the senses in some way or other in the service of the Lord. In other words, the cultivation is by going an external path which is not directly relating to the mind, but engaging rather the senses. So rather than trying to tackle what Krishna Kshetra Maharaj described, the ongoing echo in the echo chamber of the mind, and trying to turn off the sound somehow or other, trying to conquer all these thoughts, the Nectar of Devotion emphasizes rather engage the senses. So in palmistry, there is an interesting thing. If you look at my hand, you can look at the fingers. And in the lower level is the sensual level. In the middle of the fingers is the mental level. On the top of the fingers is the intellectual level. Now, wherever on the fingers there is reddishness, that is where our energy is. You all look at our hands, see if there's... so where the most... If the whole hand is red, that means you are agitated. But leaving, or you've been sitting on your hands. But leaving that aside. So the point is this, there are these levels. And if we try to solve the problem which occurs on the mental platform by putting all our energy there in the middle section on the mental platform, that will be difficult. So in the nectar devotion, they take us down to the sensual platform. And from the sensual platform, the impulses are going into the mind. And so, in other words, the good old saying, just be very busy in devotional service and just engage the senses in various ways in the service of the Lord, as is outlined in these 64 limbs. And then gradually that works up to the level of the mind. And then gradually goes beyond even the intellectual platform. As Srila Prabhupada said, that this chanting, it goes beyond the essential, the mental, and the intellectual stratum directly to the transcendental. Yeah. Then from that transcendental state, all the lower levels will become purified intelligence, purified mind, and purified senses. Okay.
Thank you very much. His Grace Vaidyanath Prabhu also has a question.
Yes, thank you very much, Hare Krishna. I was wondering about the relationship between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nrsingadev. Starting with this session, we read from Chaitanya Charitamrita how Lord Chaitanya adopted the mood of Lord Nrsingadev when he was with Srivas Thakur, and later how he was visiting Jiyada Narsingha Kshetra and showing great reverence for Lord Nrsingadev. And then there, of course, there is the pastime with Jagai and Madai. And I heard that Jagai and Madai also, Jai and Vijay, reincarnate. Whereas we hear from Srimad Bhagavatam that after the story with Shishupal and Dantavakra, that was the third birth of Jagai and Madai, and they returned back to the spiritual world. So how did they end up in this form of Jagai and Madai, which is clearly a different format from Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, and that kind of demons? That was my question. I think Sacinandana Swami would be the one.
Mm-hmm. May I just, I listened attentively to the question, but I want to make sure that I really understood it. You wish to know the relationship of Mahaprabhu to Gauranga, to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and I think you gave a few very nice examples, and then you mentioned at the end Jagai and Madai, and I don't, please clarify for me, should I just focus on the first part of the question or the second, or are they related and I don't yet see it? Please clarify.
Yes, because we get the information that Jagai and Madai are also Jai and Vijay reincarnate. So first question would actually be, how did Jagai and Jai and Vijay end up as Jagai and Madai? Did they actually, or is it a misinformation? And then actually, what is the role of Lord Chaitanya in relationship with Lord Narasimhadev, and especially how is it visible in this past time with Jagai and Madai? That would be the question.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you very much. I will try to answer. Usually it is said that all the Jai and Vijay could choose between if they wanted to be born for 3 births as demons and then return, or, wait a minute, what was the thing that they could choose, no, between being born for 3 births as demons, or if they would be not demons, they would stay much longer. So 3 births. Jagai and Madai were Ravan and Kumbhakarna, that's 1 birth. Then they came as, oh Krishna, please someone help me. Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. And then it Kamsa and Shishupal. These are 3 births. Hogya, the curse is, why did they have to come as Jagai and Madai again? That's the 4th. Well, I would say it's a bonus birth. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes are one of extraordinary mercy, of extraordinary kindness and compassion to the fallen souls. And they take part in a very brief time. So Jagai and Madai, or Jai and Vijay, made an extra 4th round, so to say, in order to attain the mercy of the Karuna avatar, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, that is an extra, that's a bonus, that's a plus, and it didn't take much time, you know, it is a very brief event. So then they could go back into their service as the doorkeepers in Vaikuntha. Now, you asked if there is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, there is somehow Lord Nrsimhadev there. Well, while he was in Navadvip Dham, there was a very, very powerful self-manifested deity in a place called Nrsimha Pali. This deity was there since a long, long time. It's a really ancient deity. And I have not heard of any direct interaction of Mahaprabhu with this deity, but I assume because Mahaprabhu went with his Sankirtan party all over Navadvip, that he must have been aware of this deity and there was some relationship. But I am not aware of any particular incident, and nor am I aware of any particular incident where Jagai and Madai saw or had an interaction with Lord Chaitanya. The only thing with Lord Nityananda, with Lord Nrsimhadev, the only thing I do clearly remember is when Mahaprabhu came with that chakra, he was definitely in the mood of Lord Nrsimhadev. He wanted to finish the opposition to his dearest devotee, Lord Nityananda, and kill them. Otherwise, you have given such nice examples of Lord Nrsimhadev and Chaitanya Leela. I remember one in Jagannath Puri. The Lord would go with his Sankirtan party, with all of them, to the Nrsimha temple, and he would chant. And during one of these kirtans, which was so intense and such an experience to one of all, the son of Advaitacharya, Gopal, danced very intensely, and he actually lost his life. He first fainted, and then he was dead. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took him on his lap and revived him while the kirtan of Lord Nrsimhadev was still going on. And so that is what I remember. Hare Krishna.
Next we have Bhakta Björn. Also we have we have an online question in between.
So online question was here. What is the best way to satisfy the Lord Nrsimhadev? And he asked, I mean, something besides devotion, seva, something special one could do today.
Maybe I can say a little something to that. When Nrsimhadev at Singhachalam first came to Singhachalam, he came actually much sooner than we expected. Suddenly one day he was there in a box on the doorstep, so to say, saying, "Here I am. You called for me, here I am." And we didn't have a temple ready. It would take another couple of years before the temple building would be ready. And I was asked to kind of take charge of preparing for the Nrsimha worship, and then when eventually Nrsimhadev was appearing, then I should oversee the worship. But we had plenty of time to find out what Nrsimhadev likes. So I was given blessings to go to India. I went to South India for some weeks and traveled to several Nrsimha temples, especially in Andhra Pradesh. And it gave me opportunity to observe how the worship was going on. And also I met many very nice priests of Nrsimhadev, very friendly and helpful. And I asked them what special services are pleasing to Nrsimhadev. And one thing that they all said is, Nrsimhadev likes sweets. Nrsimhadev likes sweets. And one of these temples in Andhra is called Panna Nrsimha. Maybe some of you have visited Sacinandana Maharaj. Did you visit Panna Nrsimha? No. He's up on a mountain or a hill, and he's inside a cave, and small cave, and there are, I don't know, a few hundred steps going up, and then the specialty of this temple is that they offer what they call panna, which is a drink consisting of jaggery or gur mixed with water, plus a few specific herbs and I think black pepper. And the system was you would go all the way up to the temple, a few hundred steps up, and then you would ask the pujari there to kindly offer on your behalf, and you would give a donation for that. And the Pujari's assistants, there was no water available up there. Pujari's assistant would go all the way down the several hundred steps with a big kumbha. And depending on this, how much donation you gave, they would have a smaller or a bigger amount. So he'd go down, he would get water, he would carry the water all the way back up these hundreds of steps. And it was pretty hot also. And then he would, in front of you, he would then mix, he would grind everything up. He would put the jaggery, the gur in the pot and the spices, and then he would mix everything. And then he would give it to the head pujari. And the head pujari would then take that pot and literally pour it into Narasimha's mouth. And the thing is that this deity of Narasimha is literally within the mountain. He is, he's part of the mountain, and he has a mouth, and there's a hole which goes into the mountain. And so, and the system was that as he's pouring, you listen carefully, and at some point, you will hear a gurgling sound. Wie sagt man gurgling auf Deutsch? You know, sort of sound. Wie sagt man? Anyway, so you'd hear this sound, and that was the sign that Narasimha had enough. And the Pujaris explained that this is a mystical feature of this particular deity of Narasimha, that no matter what the size of the, no matter what the quantity, the total quantity was that you had prepared, which you had given a donation, Narasimha would always take half of it and leave half of it as prasadam. So, yeah, so we found that out, and I don't know, are we still offering this? From the very beginning, we were offering this panakam to Lord Narasimha at Singhachalam. Are we still offering it?
Yes, we are for the evening artik. Before Sandhya artik, there's puris, milk, and jaggery panakam.
Okay, good. So, so yes, sweets for Narasimha. That's something you can do. What else can you do? Maybe the other devotees, the other swamis want to say something.
If there's no other comments, then yes, Sacinandana Maharaj would like to add something.
Yes, I'm thinking of this, how to spend this day. I thought about it yesterday and would like to add. One thing I would recommend is for everyone, let us see the main darshan this evening. Let us really make sure that we are there online. Can you tell us, Govinda, what is the time in Singhachalam when the Lord will really appear? It's when dusk is there, no?
Yes. So the main darshan, the final darshan today is at 8:53 p.m. Central European time. 8:53 p.m. we will have live darshan of the final darshan.
Yes. Then the Lord really appreciates prayers, as we have seen in the Bhagavatam. There, in order to give him pleasure, everyone prays. The Shiva prays, the Lakshmi prays. Everyone comes before him with prayers, and then he's ultimately very satisfied when Prahlad Maharaj appears, and Prahlad also prays. So you might like to go to the prayers which are given in the Bhagavatam. I think we can tell you in which chapter. Here it is. It's in the 7th canto, ninth chapter. No, there is Prahlad pacifies Lord Nrsimhadev with prayers. That's really very, very powerful. I will do this. I will chant these prayers while I'm here because they are really very, very powerful. You can, of course, also chant the Nrsimha prayers, Namaste Narasimhaya, Prahlada Ladadaine, etc. So prayers is really something which needs to be done. Attendance of the functions for Lord Nrsimhadev. What we will do here is we have invited a guest, just in the idea of compassion and that prayer. We will cook, yes, and Krishna Kshetra Maharaj has said sweets. Krishna has made a note of a sweet. That we will do, and then we will just spend the day being mindful of Lord Nrsimhadev, reading from the scriptures. There you can also chant various kavachas, like the Nrsimha kavacha, etc. And I do really know from the Nrsimha Purana that the Lord likes kirtan. In the Nrsimha Purana there is one incident that it depicts the residents of hell. Imagine, they are in hell, they are surrounded by torture machines, and then all of a sudden one of them realizes, wait a minute, this is terrible. We will all be tortured. We have been tortured in the past. We will be tortured today. We have to start kirtan here. And he starts kirtan. And then the other inmates of the hellish planets join the kirtan. And the Nrsimha Purana says that Hari, Narahari, was very pleased by this kirtan. And they all attained by this kirtan the kingdom of God. So the Lord seems to like kirtan, you know. So chant, even if you are alone in your house, you can take cartels, and if you have no instruments, your hands are there. Do kirtan, Nrsimha kirtan, Hare Krishna kirtan, always. There's a Maha mantra. Every other mantra is in that mantra, and all the benefits which you can obtain by all giving charity and so on, visiting holy places. Another thing which is good is on Nrsimha Caturdasi to really go a little bit inside your heart. Make a little investigation of the heart. We live in Kali Yuga, and it's a very bad age for spiritual life, but there's one trace there, it's honesty. The Lord is not so much demanding austerities, etc. This is very weak in Kali Yuga. We are very weak in austerities. We are very weak in deity worship. We are very weak in meditation. But we can chant and we can have that last quality, which is still somewhat there, honesty, and make an honest introspection of our heart. Where are we? And what can we next do? Krishna consciousness is some, Prabhupada has described, Krishna consciousness means to carve out Krishna out of the wooden block of this material existence. Your life is like a wooden block, and the devotee should be like a sculptor, ein Bildhauer, who carves out Krishna from this wooden block of material existence. So for that you have to only do two things. You have to focus on what you want to attain, and then you have to take off the wood or the things which are in your way. So make a very honest sculptor job today. Focus on what you wish to attain in your life, in Krishna consciousness, and then think what you need to take away so that you make sure that Krishna is appearing more and more and more and more in your life. Be honest and see, this needs to go, and I need to focus a little bit more on that. Thank you.
I have just a very short comment, and that is many times I had the good fortune of being there on this day of Lord Nrsimhadev's appearance, and of all the years that I was there, I remember one particular year that the whole festival, from beginning to end, all the days that the festival lasted, that it was raining and raining and raining, and it was cold, you know how it can be up there, and it was just, the weather was terrible, and as a result, we were just forced to go in the temple. There was just no other place to be. And we spent the whole 3 days practically in the temple, focused on Lord Nrsimhadev. And I must say, that's the festival that I remember as the best of all. That was the best of all, just to spend all our time with Lord Nrsimhadev. That was the best of all, best thing we can do.
We have similar weather this year. Actually, we have another 10 minutes from the head Pujari department. So the Abhishek will begin in 10 minutes. And Bhakta Björn has one more question. So I would like to give him the opportunity to ask this question.
Thanks to you all for these beautiful lectures. My question is about also compassion. And in me coming up this thought that there is a misunderstanding of compassion, that when you're compassionate, then you put yourself above others because you think, or they suffer, or especially when you're with devotees, then you feel like, oh, they have a lack of Krishna consciousness and I have to give them something, or this is my misunderstanding or my confusion. Maybe someone can say about this.
Who would like to take the question? Maybe Kadamba Maharaj?
Well, it reminds me of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is stating 3 verses. And he is saying in the first verse, I am lower than a worm in stool. In the second verse, he is saying that anyone who comes into my association loses all his pious credits. And then the third verse is, but how amazing it is that one like me has attained the mercy of Lord Nityananda. It is in this way that that Vaishnava compassion works. The Vaishnava is seeing himself as not qualified and not at all superior, but as inferior. But at the same time, the Vaishnava sees that he has received this amazing mercy coming from Lord Nityananda in the cyclic succession, and that therefore he has something to give. So he has nothing to give that is his own. But because he received this amazing gift of the mercy of Lord Nityananda, yes, therefore, although he is not qualified, he can be compassionate to all the conditioned souls.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? We have one last question we could have. We have another 5 minutes. Online, one more question.
Which one? So one of the questions online is, what is the best way to satisfy Lord Narasimha? That we had already. Okay. How to recognize, find out our material desires, to pray to Lord Narasimha to remove these desires out. Could be that we do not now know our desires, but Lord for sure knows our desires.
Who would like to take this question? If we just go down, maybe Kshetra Maharaj would like to say something?
I'm not sure that I understood the question. Can you read it?
How to recognize or find out our material desires, to pray to Lord Narasimha to remove these desires out. Could be that we do not know our desires, but the Lord for sure knows our desires.
Oh, so first you want to dig up all of the dirt, and then you want to pray for the Lord to remove it. That may not be required. Material desires actually can be unlimited. One desire leads to another, which leads to another, and on and on. And I believe Prahlad Maharaj speaks about that also, isn't it? In maybe chapter 7. But I think you kind of answered your own question, that the Lord knows. He knows very well. He knows much better than we know what are the material desires. You know, you could make a list, a shopping list. But actually this was, I think it was John Stuart Mill, the British economist, philosopher, 19th century, who raised the question to himself. He said, what would I do if today I would just wake up and all of my desires, I realized all of my desires have been fulfilled. Then what? I don't know how he answered himself, but that question was, you know, it's a very interesting question we ask ourselves. And you can ask yourself this also with any particular item you're thinking of that you would like to realize, to fulfill. You can then ask yourself, so what if I would get this? Then what? And this is another way I was mentioning before. The intelligence can work to sort of deconstruct the desires which the mind, the manorata, the chariot of the mind is creating. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. So what time is now? So it's 10 past, so I think the Abhishek will begin any moment. So thank you very much, all of you, for joining us. His Holiness Kanana Maharaj ki jai. His Holiness Krishna Kshetra Swami ki jai. His Holiness Sacinandana Swami ki jai. Gaura Bhaktarinda ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Prad Lakshmani Singhadev Bhagavan ki jai. So we will actually now discontinue this Zoom meeting, and you can rejoin us on YouTube for the live streaming of the Abhishek. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Hari 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 Bo.
Shingadev Bhagavan ki jai.